Hey friends, welcome. This is our first video on the Callipeg software. This software is mainly for people who have an iPad Pro. That means it is just available for iPad OS. Callipeg can be used for a wide range of projects, from study-based assignments to professional industrial work. In this session, we'll start by taking a look at the Callipeg interface. We'll also show you how to set up the software. To start, open the App Store and search for Callipeg, like this way. As you can see here, once you have found the app, absolutely you can install it. I already have the app installed, so it says open here instead of get. To use the app, you will need to subscribe to a monthly plan. The current price is $2 per month and the annual budget is different. You can subscribe from the App Store, easy, just like other apps. Once you have subscribed, you can open the app and see this primary interface. Recently, the app has been updated and some functional features added. Maybe when you're watching this video, some features changed, but always the overall will be the same. Just let's see what's new for now. Well, for one thing, you can now organize your shots into different categories. This is great for keeping track of your work, especially if you are working on a large project. As you can see, I have many shots that I've organized them in some folders. You can also label your shots, which can be helpful for finding a specific shot later. One of the most important new features is the ability to create folders. This is ridiculous that the app didn't have this option up to now, but believe me, this is new. Thanks to developers, we can now organize our shots really better. Like me, you may be working on several different projects at the same time. For example, I have a project called On the Bones and a folder for my exercises. In each folder, you can add as many shots and sequences as you like. Let's create a new folder and name it Project 1. This is for this course exercises. Every time you want to add a new shot for this course, I'll create it in this folder. Now we can create a new scene. Click the plus sign from here and select new shot. We don't need to create a sequence. Just in bracket, as you know, a sequence is a collection of shots. We'll back to that in future. We tap on new shot. The app has some presets and you can change them based on your need. Choose a name, choose a resolution, choose the FPS you want, and choose the duration of your shot. That means to set how many seconds do you want this shot to be. We'll call it 1 and set the preset to custom. Here you can choose the preset. It has different things for you. For example, YouTube 1080, standard HD, or if you want to work in a square coordinate, you can select this. But what I usually do is enter these numbers manually. So if I want to work in 1280 by 720, I double click here, change the numbers and hit OK. I do about 90 to 95% of my projects at 9020 by 1080. One of the most important things, which can also be changed during the project, is the frame rate. I currently set the frame rate to a limited 12 frames per second by default, and the duration of the shot, which can also be changed. I set it to 5 seconds. It asks you how many shots you want to create with this specification. We only want 1, so we click create. And as you see, the software creates this environment for us. If you have ever used an iPad Pro, you know how to rotate the screen, zoom in and out. You can also use this hand gesture to return any part of your screen to full screen so you can see an overview of your shot. Here is something that you need to pay attention to. The first and most important is the brushes. At the top left, you have a few options that all you will be working with are there. You have a brush, an eraser, a fill bucket, selection tool, and transforming, which you can select from here. But it tells us that since nothing has been drawn yet, of course, there's no possibility of moving it. I select the brush, and when I click on it for a second time, you see that different brushes open for me. Pay attention that this second click has an effect on everything in this software. For example, if I select the pencil and click on it for a second time, it will enter the setting for a pencil again, which we don't need to talk about right now. From the top bar, you can choose whether you want to draw a free line, a straight line, a square, a rectangle, an oval, a curve, or a circle. If I click on this, their shape changes. So what's the difference? For example, look at this free line brush. When I click on it once again, it becomes like this. Pay attention that from here I can adjust its size. I hold down my pencil and adjust the size by moving the pen up and down. You can see that this line is drawn freely on my screen. And since pressure sensitivity is enabled by default in iPad software, if I draw a line slowly, it will be light. And if I apply more pressure like this, it will draw the line thicker. Now, what's the difference here? If I select the brush again and click on it once more, you can see that it turns into this shape. What does this shape mean? It means that if I draw a line, it will fill it. Let's draw a line anywhere we want. The software will fill it whenever you draw the outline. The same applies to the rest of the tools, except for the straight line tool, which obviously cannot be filled in. Here, we can click and select the tool we want and draw the line. Just let me make the size just a little smaller. Remember, you can also do the second tab and draw field shapes. In this case, if you want to use a different color, click on the colored circle on the top right corner and the color palette will open up. From here, you can choose any color you want and draw with the color you've selected. Let's go through an example. I choose blue. Let's make the size a little bigger. Blue or any other color that I want, such as red, green, or any other. Let's explain these options briefly while the palette is open here, just very brief and fast. At the bottom, each color you choose is added to your history, so you don't need to pick it again based on a color palette again. You can find it in the history here. You know, it's almost impossible to remember color specific numbers, but if you know the numbers, you can set them from here. But there's a problem. There is a limited numbers of colors. And after a certain number, it starts to delete the first color you've added. To prevent this from happening, you go to this option, which is your own palette, and add a new palette from the bottom. Double click and rename it. For example, we name it 01 for our project. If I drag the palette to the right, you will see 3 options. First, export. If you want to work on another device or share the palette with someone else, you can export it and share it with others. Others can easily use this second option that we name it import, and they can import it from here and use it very easily. You can drag this bar to the right and click on select. This palette will be selected. Where does it go? It comes into this section. You can see from this section that my palette is selected. I can choose any color, for example, this red color. I can click on the plus sign. When I click on the plus sign, the color is added to my palette. For example, I don't always use pure black, so I choose a slightly lighter shade of black and add that color as well. And let's choose a color for shading. I want to use the 3 colors in total in this course. For example, next time I want to choose a color, I open this palette and click on any of these 3 colors to start drawing with it. I will limit myself for this course to use just 3 colors. Now let's go on. There is a time when you have an artwork. For example, we use the color here, but we didn't save its numbers or it has been lost and it doesn't exist in the history below. Now what we can do? We can use this eyedropper icon to select a color from all the colors you have on your canvas. You can see that the current color is red. I select the eyedropper and it becomes active. The color changes slightly when I click on the screen and start moving my pen. You can see that the RGB value of the colors I'm picking up are displayed at the top. Check those three numbers. Right now, 255 is repeated 3 times for white. When I move over the green color, it picks up the RGB values of that color. Similarly, when I move over the red color, it picks up the RGB values of the red color. As soon as I lift the pen from the screen, the color is selected for me and I can start drawing with it. I can select another color and start painting with different colors. As you can see, I'm introducing the tools in a floating way, rather than going one by one. I want you to learn how to use them. There may be some tools that you don't need right now. You don't need to know all the settings for all the tools in the software. It's better to just learn what you need, and that's what I'm going to focus on. After that, we'll move on the timeline panel, which is very important. The timeline window shows your layers and the frames you've created. As you can see from the top, we have set the frame rate to 12 frames per second. You can change this during the project. Here, each second is divided into 12 frames for us. Frames 1 to 12 make a 1 second, which is why there is a line here. If you move forward, at frame 24, it will become another second. And at frame 36, it will be another second. If I zoom out a little bit on this section, you can see that the beginning and end of my project are set to 60 frames. Why is that? Because when we first created the project, we set the duration to 5 seconds. So 5 times 12 is the total duration of the project. If we set the frame rate to 10 frames per second, then we should have 50 frames in total. Why doesn't this happen and why doesn't this red line get shorter? Because the red line that marks the end of our project is measured according to the frame rate I set at the beginning. The timing happens exactly according to that frame rate. You can see that when you want to export and click on a setting, the frame rate here is the same as what you set here. But you have to be careful with this division because it's exactly the same as what you set at the beginning. Okay, let's set it back to 12 and zoom in a bit more to explain further. Here I have a layer by default which I was drawing on. If I start drawing on an empty part of a layer, you can see that an image is created here. As soon as I start drawing, a frame or an image is created. I can copy this frame, move it anywhere, or do other things I want. Let's go through a very simple example. We draw a circle here in the middle of the page, and we see that an image is created here. If I move the frame forward, it goes to frame 2. And I can draw again. Those who are familiar with the animation know that one of the most important tools of any animation software is onion skin, which means that you can see your other frames, previous frames or upcoming frames. From this section, the onion skin of each layer can be activated. If I go to the next frame, I can't see anything. If onion skin is turned on, you can see that the previous frames is visible to me. I draw frame 2 here. And then I come here and draw frame number 3. You may be wondering why frame 1 disappeared when I went to frame 3. Well, this has its own setting, which we'll discuss later in relation to onion skin part. Just let's turn off onion skin. While I move this timeline, we can see a simple movement is created. If I click on the play button here, it will start playing at this high speed. To see it better, let's set the frame rate to 8. I'll click play again and you can see that it's moving like this. Just so you can see how these frames are working. I'll click the stop and go back to my first frame. Now let's describe some tools better. You may want to create 1 to several more layers. Just consider that there is no limit. Here I can choose the name of the layer when absolutely I double click on it. I'll name it BALL, ball, and click on this plus sign and choose first option. If you click on information, now You can see that it writes all these informations for you. But after a while, when you get more familiar with the software, you don't need them anymore. You just need some icons. When you click on this, it tells you that I'm adding another drawing layer, and the layer that is added is just added above the previous layer. Maybe you can't see it right now. If you take this toggle and bring it up a little more, you can see that it shows you more layers. For example, I'll name this one effect. And now I can start drawing on the layer. Let's expand our example a little more just by adding something. Since the layer is on top of the ball layer, if I draw something here, it will naturally be drawn on the ball layer. This is how the layer priority works. You can see that the red lines are on top of the black lines. I'll go one step forward. You can enable onion skin or not. You can draw another line and then another line here. This is the movement we want, just a simple movement. For example, I don't need the effect layer. You can click on the eye icon and this will be your animation. If you need the effect layer, you can click on it and see the layer again. You can also disable the ball and see these drawings as an animation. You may want to see each of your layers with lower opacity or transparency. Let's talk a little about it. Here, if you hold down the pen and move it up and down, you can see that the opacity of that layer starts to increase and decrease. If you double click on it, absolutely like other parts, you can also enter these numbers manually. We set it to 50 and you can see that our opacity is about half. Let's turn it back to full opacity, 100%. Let's expand our example a little more. For example, you may want this effect layer to be under the ball layer. You hold down the pen on the layer. When it looks like this, you bring it under the layer you want. You can move it anywhere you want. As you can see, now the red layer, which is our effect layer, is below the ball. Just see the difference. This is how you can add other layers and make your animation more and more detailed. After you are done with a layer and you don't need it anymore, you can click on this 3-dot option, and again I say if you click on this toggle light, you can come and do all the things related to that layer with all the information that is next to them. For example, you want to delete your layer or you want to lock it so that is no longer editable, or you want to activate its alpha lock, which we'll talk about all of this later. But if you want to delete the layer or lock it or copy it, it is completely possible from this section very easily. For example, I select this effect, click delete, and the layer is completely deleted. The number written here is the number of your layers. If I undo, you can see that I have 2 layers now. When it was deleted, I just had 1 layer left. Just let's move on. Let's go to the next part. When you click on add layer, you can create different layer types. You can use a video as a reference or non-reference, add a transformation to move your layers, or group your layers, or import an audio file, and any other files you want. We will explain all this in detail in the future. For now, I'm only working with the drawing layer. When you start drawing, if you have a lot of layers, for example, if I add a few more layers, when the numbers of layers reach a certain point, your space will get smaller and your design space will be reduced. You can't keep dragging this toggle up and down and draw. It will be bothering. Here we can use this option to make the entire timeline invisible. If you click on it, it will make the canvas full screen. So you can draw and then go back to the same section you want and make the various changes you want on the different layers. To not need to go to the next or previous frames like before, like that. For example, now I select this ball to draw. Go to another drawing. Just enable onion skin to see the previous frames and turn this one off. Now, for example, we want to add another circle with a different color atop here. We add another circle here. but we don't want to turn it on. We have two options here, to go to the next frame or previous frame. At next frame, I see it's onion skin, I can draw, and then next frame. You see, my drawings are done. If you want to go to the first frame, click this one, and if you want to go to the last frame, select this. If I want to edit something, turn onion skin on and off, I select the invisible timeline button again and make the necessary revisions. Now what if I want to work in multiple form? For example, I want to edit my layers all in once. Pay attention that this part and this selection doesn't happen with the pen. If you drag to the right with your finger, you will see a layer color changed. If you do the same thing with the next layers, their color will also change. This means that if you want to delete, for example, 4 layers together, you select them this way. Just turn off this toggle, click delete, and you see that 4 layers are deleted to like. Now what if you want to move your frames? For example, you have some frames and you want to move them. To make changes on frames, you should double click on it. You see that a single tap does not select it. Double tap select the frame. Now you can use this section to increase or decrease the duration of that frame to any amount you want. You can also enter the number manually. For example, if you set it to 10, you will see that the drawing will remain for 10 frames. Let me just turn this off. You see, one frame, and the next 10 frames are the same design that I did for frame number 3. I can bring it back to 1 frame again. From this section, you can select the frame and absolutely you can delete it, or if you want, you can copy, paste, and other options. Open this toggle details. You see, everything is written for you and it is very simple. Copy and paste or duplicate with content. For example, you want to make a duplicate of it. I usually do this when I want to copy a frame itself and take it somewhere else. Click and hold the duplicate with content. For example, make a duplicate for me here. If you don't hold it and just click, you will see that this happened from the next frame. But if you want to move it, select it, hold down your pen, bring it down and release it whenever you want. The frame will be created for you there. Or if you want to copy it, select, copy from here, and for example, come here and select paste. It will be pasted for you here, anywhere you want. It's not the same thing. Now we have explained these tools and we have also given a general explanation about frames and selecting them. I know there are many tools left around our software that we have not mentioned, but we don't need to learn them to start our project. As we go further, we will refer to them one by one in detail when we need them. I think I forgot something. Erasing. How to erase or modify your frames. Well, for drawings, your desired layer should be only active. If you start drawing, you can change it and the change will be applied on the same frame. But if you want to erase something, you select this eraser. If you click on a second time, like brushes, the setting will be appear. Here, the size of the eraser is exactly like the brush that you can change and erase any part you want. I go to the previous frame. For example, I want to erase here a little bit, the next frame here, and the next frame, this part. Now that you have done this, let's just make the ball layer visible. How to move the whole drawing or a part of it. For example, this is not in the right place. We want to move it. The frame and layer are selected. I click on the transform tool and I can move it all together anywhere I want. For example, I bring it here and if I deactivate it, you see that its place has changed. Again, I select it in the next design and move it a little bit and you see that its place has changed again. I do the same for the next and you see this displacement has been done. Now what if you don't want to move the whole drawing? For example, I want to move half of this circle. So let's do this just simply. I select the ball layer. Instead of transform tool, I'll use the selection tool. I select the part I want to move. You see, this part is active because it determines the type of selection I want. For example, if I select this, I can select a square or rectangular shape. If I select this, I can select spherical shapes. And this is a free line. I select the free line and then I select the transform tool. For example, I select this part again and bring it down a little bit. Because the ball layer is active, only the ball layer will be selected when I select this part. I do the same thing with the next frame. And this is how my limited animation, this isn't animation, just a movement, turned out. And the last thing is flip. If you want to see your scene flipped, you can flip it from here for a moment. Do your drawing and then flip it back to the original state. That was it. This was just a general explanation of the software interface so that you know how to use the software. I said multiple times that there are other tools left, but we don't need them all. If we need them, in the next videos, we will go through them one by one and explain them as much as we need them for this project. In the next videos, we will start to create a very basic animation step by step with the software and export it to see what's happened. Stay tuned.